Hello there BookTube, how are you doing? Today I'm doing part 2 of the Interrail/Eurorail book tag that was created by Mark over at Book Time with Elvis. I really enjoyed the last one, and yeah, I'm just going to keep on going with the journey for as long as it goes on. And I'll reiterate what I said in the first video, which is if you've been enjoying watching people doing this, if you think it's a fun tag to do, please do it. I've been looking around and some of the compartments here on the train are a bit empty actually, so yeah, feel free to get a ticket and jump on board. But let's get into the tag. I really like the questions in this one, so let's see what happens. So, having had your fill of paella, you head off to Lisbon. It's a long route with stops and transfers on the way. Have you read a book that felt like it wasn't ever going to end? I'm sure I have, but I couldn't remember a specific example. I'm sure even in like the last year or so, there have been at least 2 or 3 times when there's been a book I haven't thought was going to end. I really wasn't really liking it that much, and my wife was like, "Well, just stop reading it," and I was like, "No, I have to get to the end," because I have this kind of there have been a couple of books that I've put down, but on the whole, there's always this nagging little doubt in my head that if I'm really not enjoying a book, I'm like, well, what if like in like the last 50 pages something's going to happen that's going to make it my favourite book ever, which I think is entirely possible, or at least redeem the book in some way. And so, but yeah, I couldn't think of a specific example. I was trying to look back through Goodreads and I just couldn't remember. So I'm sure it's happened, but I can't think of an example. And then finally, after much travel, you arrive in Lisbon, a beautiful city that had large parts of the city destroyed in the great earthquake of 1755. Have you ever experienced an earthquake, tornado, hurricane or some such force of nature? I don't believe I have. Apparently once actually when we were driving home from a holiday, I can't remember where we were, we were driving down the road and my dad looked in the rear view mirror and could see a tornado in the background, but not a very big one. They're very rare, and even if they're here in the UK, they're often quite small. Anyway, they could do a bit of damage to roofs and stuff, but nothing really like you see in the rest of in other parts of the world. And then yeah, nothing really like an earthquake or something like that, or a hurricane. Where we lived, we were quite close to a quarry, so sometimes there were tremors, but that was from a quarry. It wasn't a natural disaster. And we've had some storms and stuff where the power went out and some pretty high winds, but I don't think anything quite on hurricane level. We always used to quite enjoy when the power went out in our house, and get out the candles and the acoustic guitars and the camping stove and just have fun with it. So no, I haven't really experienced some such force of nature. Lisbon was home to Fernando Pessoa. Have you read anything by him? Yes, I just read The Book of Disquiet. It's probably the maybe most famous thing that Pessoa wrote. A very fragmentary book. It's a sort of collection of writings that are literally written on scraps that they found in a massive chest after he died, written by 2 of his many heteronyms. And yeah, it's a really fascinating book, quite heavy in some places, but actually quite beautiful, and actually quite liberating in other places. Yeah, I'd love to read more of his poetry, written in various sort of heteronyms, but yeah, I'd be interested to move on to more of that. Interestingly, Pessoa published just 4 books in his lifetime, and 3 of them were in English. He also translated books like The Scarlett Letter by Hawthorne and poems by Poe into Portuguese. Do you read many translated works, and what are some of your favourites? I read a fair few. really only in the last couple of years or so I've been more interested in it, to move maybe out of the tradition of just, you know, the English speaking canon, I suppose. And yeah, so I just had a look at some of the ones that I've got with me here, because I'm staying at my sister's house at the moment. Borges is one of my favourites. This is some of his poetry, which I've only dipped into so far, but you know, I've read his fiction, you know, short stories, and love them. Let's see, so some other favourites. A recent read for me was The Invention of Morale by Casares. I have Rilke, Letters to a Young Poet. I love Rilke's poetry as well. And then I've been dipping in and out of this collection of French tales by Helen Constantine. She translated them, but it's got, let's see, Daniel Boulanger in it, and I think it's got some Zola and stuff like that. Yeah, sort of a taste of French short story writing. And then, I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to be very soon. This is The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco, and I'm really looking forward to reading this in a sort of group read this September, with sort of being led by Summer at Cozy Reading with Quaker Cats, and yeah, really looking forward to that. I could, I think, read much more in translation, and I'm always looking for more. Moving on from that, if I can find the right question. Pessoa was fond of the odd drink or ten. He head up to the city of Porto, famous for, among other things, port, a drink of fortified wine. Do you have a favourite tipple now and then? If you don't drink alcohol, then what is one of your favourite thirst-quenching beverages? Yeah, I love an ale, or a port, or a stout, something like that. Yeah, for an alcoholic drink, I'm quite simple. It tends to just be some kind of beer, preferably an ale. I mean, I quite enjoy like a lager, like a good pilsner or something like that sometimes, particularly on a hot day. And occasionally red wine, but I'm not too picky with red wine. I haven't really experimented enough to see what I like. And then, but I mostly just drink water, tea, and coffee. So yeah, that's me. I like ginger beer every now and then. Ginger beer's good. Let's keep going. So then, Porto is home to the Livraria Leo, a beautiful bookshop that, unfortunately, due to some tenuous link to the Harry Potter films, has now become a bit of a tourist attraction. Have you got a favourite bookshop and or library? Two of my favourite bookshops would be, so one over in Cardiff, a little second-hand bookshop in one of the arcades called Troutmark Books. I'll see if I can get a picture of it here. It's over 3 stories, so in the basement there's lots of non-fiction reference books on sociology and travel and health. Then all the fiction, poetry, plays, children's literature is on the ground floor, and then you go up some rickety steps and there's sci-fi and horror, and I think like records and books on music and like all sorts of random stuff up there. So yeah, it's really interesting. I think with COVID and everything at the moment, I think only like 6 people can go in, and they're running quite reduced hours, so I haven't really been in there for quite a while. But I always like going in there because it's a great little second-hand bookshop. A slightly bigger second-hand bookshop in the UK is a bookshop called Barter Books in Alnwick in north-east England. Just I think it's an old train station or something like that that's been converted into a bookshop, and it's really cool and quite extensive. So whenever I'm in sort of that neck of the woods, because my wife's got some family over there, so I always try to go over there because yeah, it's always fun to just have a nosy around. And then in terms of libraries, yeah, one library that really impressed me was sort of the town library in St Peter Port on Guernsey. You know, it's quite a small town, even though it's sort of the capital of the island. And really, on mainland Britain, if you had, you know, a small town that size, you might not even have a library. You know, like, libraries are getting so bad over here, really, on the whole. It's quite sad. And so it was really a joy to find that library there. It seemed that they're doing lots of great stuff with the community, and they had a really great sort of great range of stuff. You know, it's not the most impressive building, but it's a very nice old building, and I'd love to get lost in there for hours, really. Then moving on, the Douro River runs through Porto, and the old town is a UNESCO World Heritage Site with its 6 bridges across the river. Have you visited any UNESCO sites? If so, tell us about some of them. And I kind of looked up to see if there are any in Wales, because it turns out I've been to a few of them. So Harlech Castle, Carnarvon Castle, Conwy Castle and Beaumaris Castle are all UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and they were kind of my neck of the woods. From the village where I lived, we were right on the edge of an estuary. If you walked down onto the estuary and just looked across it, you could see Harlech Castle just over on the other side. And it looked like an upturned cow just lying on its back on the hills. But yeah, so there'd be some of them, and also apparently loads of the old slate mines near where I used to live are also UNESCO World Heritage Sites, which is quite cool. Okay, finding yourself in a particularly devout mood and with a lot of time on your hands, you decide to walk the Portuguese Camino de Santiago all the way to Santiago de Compostela, which will take you between 10 to 12 days. If you're not up to this, you can grab a bus there in 3.5 hours. Do you enjoy walking or hiking? What was the longest walk you've done? I do. I really love hiking. I grew up in North Wales, and there's lots of great mountains there to go up. But you know, I haven't really done any massive sort of multi-day hikes or anything like that. Although sort of me and my dad and my brother very, very slowly in various stints have been doing a walk around the Llyn Peninsula in Wales from our village. We went all the way to Llanystundwy in one walk. I don't know how many miles that was, and then we did another walk from Llanystundwy over to Paella, and that's about as far as we managed to get on foot so far. But yeah, hopefully some point when we're up there again, we'll carry on. And then after a bit of R&R and some intense foot bathing in Santiago de Compostela, you embark by train to Bilbao, the de facto capital of the Basque Country. The Basque Country was the home to Juan Sebastian Elcano, the man who took over from Magellan's circumnavigation of the world after his death. Have you read much non-fiction on discovery and exploration? And are there any interesting books you would recommend to us? This is a subject that really interests me, but I haven't read very much yet. I do own a copy of Sir Francis Drake's sort of voyage around the whole globe, which is written by Richard, I always say his name wrong, Richard Hakluyt, I want to say, and yeah, it's just sort of an account of Sir Francis Drake trying to get around the world, and I've sort of dipped into it, but I haven't read it all the way through yet. It's not very long. I just got distracted, but yeah, I'd love to read more books about particularly circumnavigation and, yeah, I suppose, yeah, sort of pre-modern navigation and exploration. I find that really, really interesting. And then moving on from there, not far from Bilbao lies the town of Guernica, made famous by the atrocities committed there during the Spanish Civil War by the Luftwaffe in support of General Franco's fascists. These atrocities are commemorated in Pablo Picasso's painting Guernica. Picasso is known for being an influential figure in both the Cubist and Surrealist movements. Are you a fan, and have you got a favourite artistic school or movement? I do quite like Picasso. I mean, he's I don't know. Yeah, I don't dislike Picasso. I quite like his series where he was kind of like deconstructing a sketch of a bull. I found that quite interesting. And Guernica is actually a painting of his I really quite like. But my favourite school, I don't know, it seems like a lot of people will be the Impressionists and the Post-Impressionists. Yeah, I went through a massive just Impressionist phase in my sort of mid to late teens, and quite enjoy, I suppose, abstract Expressionism as well. And at the moment, actually, I'm quite enjoying looking back at the pre-Raphaelites. Maybe I'll link some of my favourite paintings from those movements down below. But yeah, they'd be some of my favourites. I quite enjoyed the Surrealists as well. Leonora Carrington is a painter I quite enjoy. I don't like her writing as much as I like her paintings, but her paintings are, yeah, I really like them. Moving on from there, from Bilbao you travel to Barcelona. In Barcelona you visit the Camp Nou, home to Barcelona football team, and in many the national team of Catalonia. Are you a football or soccer fan? If not, what sports do you like? Do you ever go to matches, meets, events, etc.? I'm not a massive football fan. I don't know, it seemed like when I was in primary school, football was all anyone would like, and I just got really fed up of it. I much preferred just sort of, I don't know, walking around by myself. Yeah, so I'm not a massively sporty person. I enjoy watching tennis. I love watching Wimbledon on TV. Quite enjoy rugby. Don't mind playing rugby, although I'm not very good at it. But I don't know, there's something about the slight dread that someone's just about to jump on you and destroy you that I quite like. Yeah, I think of other sports I enjoy. I don't know. Yeah, not a massively sporty person, I'm afraid. I don't mind going over to you know, the pub if a rugby game or a football match is on. That's more just you know, just to be around company and stuff rather than the game itself. And sometimes all the cheering and stuff, yeah, is actually a bit distracting, and I'd prefer just to be off somewhere quiet talking with someone instead. So yeah, it depends. Anyway, you decide not to stay too long in Barcelona and instead move on back to France and up the Mediterranean coast to the town of Nice, passing through the town of Cannes. Cannes, of course, is well known in the film industry and has one of the industry's most glamorous film festivals. What are a few of your favourite films, and what was one of the most disappointing films you've seen? Some of my favourite films, I put a very specific list down so I wouldn't talk too long here, but I love Fritz Lang's Metropolis. That's probably my favourite film ever. Yeah, I think one of the most epic and moving silent films ever made. Yeah, if you have a silent film that you prefer and you would like to recommend, please do. I love Hitchcock, I love his films. I think Vertigo and Rear Window are my two favourites, both James Stewart films. He's one of my favourite actors. The Big Sleep and The Maltese Falcon. I love The Third Man with Orson Welles, and really cool music in that actually. I really like that. And then some more films that would sort of cheer me up. I love Roman Holiday with Audrey Hepburn and Gregory Peck. I love Harvey, again James Stewart, and yet another James Stewart and Katharine Hepburn, and oh no, name's gone out of my head. What's his name? I'll put it up. But Philadelphia Story, again one of my favourite films. If not, yeah, maybe number two. It's kind of edging there with Metropolis, depending on my mood. Disappointments. Trying to think. Maybe the new Little Women film. I didn't hate it or anything. In fact, I quite enjoyed it when I watched it in the cinema. But then I got it on DVD and watched it at home, and I don't know. It just seemed a bit boring actually on a smaller screen, and I don't know. It didn't seem as coherent a film outside of the context of being in a cinema. I don't know why that was. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was just the aesthetics, the lighting and the colour of the film. Maybe it stood out more. It arrested you more maybe on the big screen. But on the little screen, I was just really underwhelmed with it, and I didn't think it really made much sense as a film. I much prefer earlier versions of Little Women. But although I read the book, it's not one of those books that's super dear to my heart. So if there's an adaptation that isn't as good, I'm not going to come down on it like a pile of bricks. I'll just be like, oh, okay, could have done better, but you know, it's not the worst film in the world. So yeah, that's that for now. Oh, there's the last little bit, isn't there? Where we're going next. So heading further up the Mediterranean coast, we arrive in a new country, Italy, and the city of Genoa, where we will pause our journey for now, and if interest remains in this little tag, we will pick up our trip in the former home of Christopher Columbus. Until then, grazie mille. Oh dear. Anyway, yeah, goodbye.